Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Jay Myrax, and today what I want to do is do like a little shootout. I had one of my buddies asking me about tracking out using the hardware standalone MPCs, and one of the things that was coming up was this question about synchronization. You know, when you make a beat, drum pattern or a full-on beat with the MPC, there's always an issue that you have to track the music out using synchronization in order to get things to line up in your DAW. So I want to do a shootout now, comparing a few different methods, and we want to talk about what's going to be the best method in terms of, first of all, convenience, but then secondly, in terms of maintaining the actual groove and the feel from the original sequence. Because when you synchronize things, there's always a possibility that the master is going to change the behavior. And that's a commonly talked about thing amongst the MPC community, is that the master clock of the DAW changes the feel of the sequence. So we're going to go through a sequence on the MPC and then do two different forms of tracking. The first form is going to be a standard Midi synchronization. We're going to use MTC synchronization to track out the layers. And then we're also going to use another technique, which would be to import the Midi data from the MPC directly into the DAW, and then use the DAW to trigger the sounds and record it directly into the DAW. So that way you get two different takes on how to track out from the MPC, and then we can compare the results. All right, so we're going to start this now. All right, so to start this off, I have a groove that is at 88.1 BPM, and it's using about 55% swing on the MPC on the kicks to give it a little bit more swing, and then there's a little bit of there's a one tick offset on the hi-hat, so it's got a little bit of a shuffle going on, and I did that specifically so that we can really test the DAW's ability to capture the groove from the MPC. All right, so that way we're not dealing with just a straight groove where everything's locked in, but we're dealing with something that has a specific groove character. So I'm gonna play back the sequence. It's just drums, just so that we have something simple to test. All right, so here it is. All right, so that's the groove. So I've already saved this groove as a MIDI sequence inside the MPC, so that way I can already start tracking out things from the MPC. So I'm going to do a couple things actually. I'm going to do one stereo pass of all the drum sounds playing together so that we have a reference point, and then we're going to go ahead and do the other methods of tracking it out. All right, so here we go. For my MIDI sync, I'm just going to use a MIDI interface from Yamaha. This is actually an old MIDI interface. It's the Yamaha UX96 MIDI interface. It's a USB interface. It's basically just one in, one out. So I have the output going into the input of the MPC for synchronization purposes. And I already recorded a reference track without synchronization just so that we can have something to refer back to. So what we're going to do now is record individual tracks into Logic from the MPC. I have the MPC synced up to Logic via MIDI time code as we discussed earlier. And I'm going to track out one sound at a time into Logic. Now I have 2 bars of pre-roll so that Logic can have enough time to sync up with the MPC. Logic is acting as the master, so it's sending MTC directly into the MPC 2000XL. So when I hit play, or actually when I hit record, it's going to basically roll for 2 bars, and then it's going to start recording after 2 bars. So let's go. So I got enough of the kick now. So now I'm going to move to the next track. I'm going to go ahead and continue doing all the tracking of these drums via Midi time code first. I'm not going to make you sit through all of that, but I just want to let you see we're doing Midi time code right now. So we got a couple more things we're going to track in, and then once we do that, we're going to switch to the other method, which is to track using the Midi import feature. All right, so now I tracked out everything using Midi time code. What I'm going to do now is actually import the Midi sequence from the MPC. Now what I did was I took out my compact flash card from the MPC. So the compact flash card, let's see if I can show it to you. So this is the compact flash card. It's connected to the computer right now via USB. And what I'm going to do is just drag the Midi file from the compact flash card onto the computer so that I can import the Midi groove into Logic, and then I can use that to trigger the MPC as a sound device using the Midi sequence from the MPC. Alright, so now I got all of the Midi tracks imported into Logic. So those are all the green tracks at the bottom. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to assign each of those tracks to trigger the MPC 2000XL as a Midi device. So I'm just going to select the appropriate Midi out port. So I'm going to choose the UX96, choose port 1 on that. So all of them are going to be assigned to the UX96. I'm also going to turn the MTC time code off on the MPC. And I'm also going to turn that off in Logic so that it's not sending any synchronization anymore. So it's off now. Hit play. Yeah, okay, so now I'm good to go. So what you're hearing now is Logic playing back the MPC sounds as Midi. So now that I have the Midi tracks, what I'm going to do is start creating some new audio tracks to record the sequence. We're going to use the resulting recordings to compare Midi synchronization versus importing. All right, so now we're going to record the kick. Alright, so I'm not going to make you sit through the whole tracking process of this. I'm going to go ahead and take care of this, and then we're going to go and compare the results after we finish doing the tracking. So what's going on? I just got finished doing a test with the MPC 2000XL and Logic. And the point of the test was to try to check and see what the best way of tracking out music from the MPC would be at this point. So one of the issues is that a lot of people have problems with synchronization when they're using the MPC and a DAW. So some people say you have to use the MPC as the master. Some people say that it's okay to use a DAW as the master. And I wanted to check that and verify that. So what I did was I did one session that had 3 different versions of the same track. I did one full pass of the MPC as the master, tracking out just the 2-track stereo so that there was no synchronization. It was just the raw MPC groove all together without any type of separation or tracking to create a different groove or alter the original groove. So I did a reference track that had 2 tracks or a stereo track. So then what I did was I did a track out session using Logic as the master, sending MTC directly into the MPC 2000XL. And after that, I did another full track out session using the Midi file from the MPC, and I imported that into Logic and used Logic to trigger the MPC using the Midi sequence from the MPC. So that way there's no synchronization, it's just a straight Midi trigger. And the results that I got were actually kind of interesting, because what I found was that the MTC is very inconsistent. There was a lot of times where, as I listened to the playback, the kicks that I had inside of the sequence began to phase and shift, and they weren't in the correct place at every point. So it made the synchronization very sloppy. When I used the Midi import option instead of doing synchronization, that actually gave me results that were closer to the original MPC groove, and I didn't have all the phasing and the alignment issues that I was having with the MTC version. So at this moment, I would recommend that if you are using an MPC, that you consider using the Midi import option as opposed to using a hardware synchronization, because the timing may be off if you use MTC synchronization for the duration of the track. So if you're tracking out for 3 minutes or 4 minutes of a song, you may have very inconsistent hits. Now, for some people, they think, okay, that's part of the character and the groove from the MPC, the inconsistency. And you know, that's an artistic and technical choice that you may make in doing your tracking. But I would suggest that if you want something that is accurate, then I would use the Midi import as opposed to the MTC. All right, I'm going to play back some examples for you guys just so you can hear the difference. I want you to listen specifically to the groove, listen to the kicks. It's not really a sound quality thing, but you know, you might hear a slight difference. I tried to make sure that the recording was the same. However, there might be a slight difference in that aspect. However, really check out the groove and the synchronization. So anyhow, listen to it, check it out, think about it. Hopefully it helps. All right, peace and God bless.